When it comes to Quest updates, it seems like they're coming faster and faster. We were just talking about v64 software update rolling out, and now it's time to talk about v65. This is already hitting the public test channel, and it started rolling out on April 30th to some headsets, so you may see this on your headset already. Not quite as many big changes to this one, but one of them that they keep talking about is pass-through improvements. Now, we saw pass-through improvements in the last update that allowed you to finally really be able to see your phone without the camera getting blown out. It allowed you to even watch TV through the headset, albeit a grainy, not as good looking version of it. But reviews were mixed a little bit on whether or not this update was worth it, because it did mean that overall the pass-through was dimmer, the colors popped less, and so some people who didn't really care about being able to use their phone through pass-through didn't like this as much. I personally had always found my phone pretty usable. Similar to when I tried the Apple Vision Pro, you could see right through it, you could respond to text, and with the Quest it was a little harder, but you could do it fine. It seems like these software updates for the Quest are trying to follow some of the same trends as the Apple Vision Pro though, because when you put on an Apple Vision Pro, it feels like you're always either seeing your environment or you're always seeing a custom environment you've put around you, and when you switch from menu to app, it always stays there. Where with the Quest, you probably noticed before, when you switch menus, system menu, power, it would a lot of times take you to this default gray background. It would kind of pull you out of the immersion, and now they're trying to make it to where all the menus keep you in whatever you're in, whether that's virtual or pass-through. So system menus, prompts that pop up, whether you're restarting the headset, you stay immersed a little bit longer between all of these, and you don't have it break away to that gray so much, which is a nice change for the UI. We're also seeing changes to the interfaces to make them look less flat, more three-dimensional, bigger icons that make them a little bit easier to navigate. That was another big difference I noticed when you try an Apple Vision. It seems like all the icons are way big and way in your face, and it reminds you in the Quest, they could be bigger, they could be easier, especially for people with difficulty with eyesight. It would be more accessible and easier with bigger icons and menus. But there's mentions of being able to anchor these windows too, so now instead of your menu always popping up on you, if you use the same environment over and over, you could decide, I want the menu to always snap to this wall and stay there whether I look away, because then you could walk over and press something on it rather than always pulling it up right in front of you and possibly distracting from what you're looking at. Along the same vein of probably being pushed further by Apple's innovations, panoramic photos and spatial videos are getting more updates in v65. Now, if you have an iPhone with iOS 17 or later, you can upload your panoramic photos through the Meta Quest mobile app on that phone instead of having to go through and put it on your headset manually, with Meta really trying to compel people that basically you can buy a $500 headset that does most, if not all of the things a $3,500 headset does. The update is adding some mouse and keyboard improvements, so now if you're using a physical keyboard and mouse with your headset, you should see less times where your hand tracking tries to kick in and messes that up for you. And that's whether you're using the Bluetooth keyboard, mouse, or even Meta Quest remote display. I'm happy to hear that for mouse and keyboard, but personally, I've been finding that with multimodal now in full effect, where you can use one hand and one controller at the same time, a lot of times I'm having to struggle to get my controllers to switch over to those instead of staying in hand tracking. So I'm hoping we see more updates in that. Boundary recall system has been improving with the last few updates, and they're utilizing this to also improve local multiplayer. And if you're playing something like that new mixed reality experience escape room directly from Meta, you could be playing this multiplayer with other people, and it will track the same objects in the same environment around you to make it immersive, that you're both reaching for the same cabinet or working together in the same way. Further digging in through the public test channel, people have found mentions of travel mode, a password screen, and even the potential of using Meta's new generative AI to make your own custom environments. So if you don't want to be in pass-through but you don't like the environments in there is a possibility of creating your own skyboxes with generative AI, which would be a pretty cool idea. There's very little details on what exactly this means yet, but being able to basically say a line of, I want to be on top of a mountain at the time of sunset, and it just generates it around you, that'd be pretty neat to play around with on the Quest. So there's nothing quite revolutionary, I would say, with the v65, but it does show more updates, and it does kind of help show that competition is good for the industry because it's creating more innovations that maybe Meta wouldn't have been pushing to these headsets as soon as they are now. What updates would you like to see out there? I know I saw in the comments section on a Road to VR article someone saying that right now you can side quest recording your own spatial video with the cameras on the Quest, albeit it wasn't the best looking thing they'd seen, but I think that would be kind of cool. That is one thing that the Apple Vision Pro does advertise, is recording its own great spatial video. So if Quest adds that, well, it'll be one more thing where they kind of copied them. The Steam monthly hardware survey tells us what headsets people are specifically using to play PCVR, and it looks like the Quest 3 is finally about to catch up to the Index. For a long time, since near Oculus Quest 2's launch, the Quest 2 has been the headset most used to play PCVR, even over the dedicated Valve Index. But for the first time ever, we're about 0.5% away from the Quest 3 taking over the Index, while the Index saw a downturn of near 1% and the Quest 3 went up another 0.5%. Some news articles are saying that people are upgrading to the Quest 3 from the Index, although if you've used an Index and the Quest 3, you know there's a lot of trade-offs. Of course, the biggest one for the Quest 3, if you're playing it wirelessly, that is a huge step to not be wired wired to your PC. But it's unsurprising to me that the Quest 3 is getting there. A brand new Quest 3 is $500. The Index, 5 years now after launch, is still $1,000. So not only are people probably hesitant to buy a headset that old at that high price, but even people who have had their headset 5 years and it's starting to die wouldn't want to pay the same price they paid 5 years ago for another brand new one when they could look at something like a Quest 3 for PCVR instead. The Rift S, even after being discontinued, still somehow holding strong with near 10%. And then of course the rest of the survey gets into really random headsets we don't see or hear too much about, including even people who are still using this Sony original PSVR on PC with 0.06% of the users. It's unsurprising, but it really does seem like there is still a market for dedicated PC headsets that are high resolution, low weight. You don't have to deal with the battery like you do with Quests. But we keep waiting to see who's going to step up and take that spot, whether Pimax is really going to keep fighting for it, or if Valve is finally going to tell us if this Deckard thing is real and if it's ever coming over. The Quest 3 Lite, the Quest 3S, whether anybody knows what exactly the name is, it's the headset that we're all hoping that is coming to replace the Quest 2, especially now that we're seeing exclusive games coming to the Quest 3 repeatedly. A name PANTHER started making the rounds actually back in October of last year, but now once again Oculus PANTHER, the name is showing up in v65 code, and you'll recognize multiple other names here, code names that eventually became the headsets that we know today, like the Hollywood being the Quest 2, the Eureka being the Quest 3. It doesn't seem like there's any rhyme or reason, but only further fuel to the fire that the Quest 3 or the Quest 3 Lite are hopefully coming soon. And although we don't know yet whether Meta is having a gaming showcase like they usually do every year, it's usually coming pretty soon here, so we're hopeful maybe whatever this headset is would be announced then. You just really want my attention, don't you? If they drop a $200 or even a $300 Quest 3 Lite, is that something you'd consider over the Quest 3, or are you holding out and saving up for the Quest 3? Quest Plus has been seeming more and more valuable lately. If you don't know Quest Plus, it is the subscription-based gaming service on Meta. You pay $8 a month or $60 a year, and you get 2 games a month that you can keep as long as you keep paying that subscription. But recently they added a whole library of old games that you also get access to all the time. Every month 2 new to you, hopefully, games come out, and this month Vacation Simulator, which at least is well known from the creators of Job Simulator, albeit the less beloved sequel. And I gotta be honest, Stones of Harleth was one I had never even heard of. I guess this came out a few years back. It calls itself a mysterious VR adventure, a game that's traditionally only $10 anyways and about a 4-star rating, meaning it's not the most beloved game by far. I personally haven't gotten Quest Plus. I don't see the value, especially someone who owns most of the games. And with those titles coming to it this month, I would say that doesn't make it any more compelling, although it does still include the huge library, or the games catalog as they call it, which does include some good games like Demio, 2MDVR Football, the original Red Matter, and Walkabout Mini Golf. So if you don't already own all those games, Quest Plus still might be something interesting for you, although it's still, for me, not quite compelling enough. And if they keep adding more games like Stones of Harleth, well, it probably won't feel any more. Still, Google Earth VR is one of the most commonly used PC VR apps because you can take people anywhere in the world in VR through Google Earth and show them wherever you want to, whether it's somewhere they lived or somewhere they want to visit. Well, unfortunately, that version has never come to Quest, but now there is an Earth Quest out on App Lab. It is not free, it is $5 for it, but this utilizes the same APIs of Google Earth, allowing you to pretty much travel the world in it. It also has the option to integrate ChatGPT, meaning you can actually have an AI companion while you travel the world in this, which not only opens you up to ask questions, but actually enables a lot of different languages, any of them that ChatGPT can digest and speak, to be utilized. I was actually talking to the developer about this the other day, and they were explaining how they are constantly improving this, as this is a newer app. And you can see in the reviews, which are lower, 62 ratings, putting about a 3.8 star. The recent ones have been better, as this has been continuing to improve. People saying that it's a system selling app, it's an instant buy, they really like it, but people saying when it works, it's really cool, although they were having problems with the APIs. It'll be an interesting one to keep your eye on. I know Google Earth has been one of the magical experiences on PC that I put people in who had never played VR and then put them back in their childhood neighborhood or showing them an old home of theirs. And it was really amazing for people. And I've been kind of waiting for that on Quest because it's an easy thing to show people who aren't used to VR. Hopefully, as EarthQuest continues to develop, it becomes the easy go-to for that. If you've been on the lookout for a camera to start making your own VR videos with, the Insta360 X4 is $500, and this is a handheld 8K 360-degree camera. And 8K is actually pretty compelling because that can almost match the resolution that you can get on the Quest 3, although they point out it will still fall short of the Apple Vision Vision Pro, but if you have $3,500 for one of those, you might be buying a more expensive camera. We actually got to play around with the proper VR camera, the CAF VR one, and we dropped a video on the channel recently, although we did everything we could in exporting and encoding to try and get YouTube to accept it in 8K because we were actually filming in 6K, and ultimately it only ended up in 4K in the video, so it does look blurrier than it does when we review the videos ourselves. But it's interesting to see some of these options developing. Assassin32, another VR channel I've talked about before, I hang out with the actual developer of the channel, and he's got one of the older Insta360s, and it's really cool what you can do with it, the way you can hold it and it'll delete the selfie stick out of the view, the way you can revisit a memory from a vacation or something and look at it in 360. And now that stuff is actually hitting 8K, it looks good enough, I would say, on the Quest that it's really enjoyable to watch the content, where if you try to watch stuff in 4K, it's really rough. I'm on the fence about getting one of these myself at this price, but if you've been out there and you've been thinking you'd like to see some VR content from creators that you can actually watch in VR, let me know in the comments down below. It might be interesting to me. I'll leave a link up here to that one we did make on the CAF one, although unfortunately the CAF one at $2,000 only does 180-degree VR instead of 360. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm happy to be here updating you what's going on in the Quest world, but let me know what's going on in yours, and I'll see you in another reality.